Welcome to my Harvest Moon Wonderful Life speedrunning Marry Muffy category guide. In this guide I'll show you the basics to Harvest Moon Wonderful Life speedrunning, and more specifically what you have to do in a Marry Muffy run. So the first thing I'm going to explain is how the hearts in this game work, because the most important thing in a run is knowing when you can propose to the girl of that category, because if you give her any extra gifts, that just wastes time, which is bad. So I've come up with my own point-based system, so I know how many hearts a girl will have depending on how many points she has. Normally it only matters when the girl is on 4 hearts, however I'm going to go through how many points are required for each heart, just in case you want to use them for splits or anything like I do. But first, you may be wondering, well, what exactly are points and how do you get them? Points come from giving a gift to a girl or doing an activity which just increases your friendship with them. The two big examples of things that give you points in this game are giving gifts and cutscenes or heart events. But I'll talk about things like those later in the video, so for now let's actually get to some gameplay. So the first thing that comes up in every single Harvest Moon Wonderful Life run is the intro. If you're playing on the PAL version, then a good intro is 6 minutes 43 seconds, and a decent intro is 6 minutes 45 seconds. Unfortunately, because I don't play on the NTSC version, I can't really tell you what a good time for that is, so you'll just have to figure that out. Because nothing really interesting happens in the intro, once I've explained everything, I'm just going to skip it and go on to the actual gameplay. The majority of the intro is just mashing A through all the text. One of the irritating things about the text in this game is it's very inconsistent with its speed, so mashing won't always advance the text as fast as you would like, but because you'll play the intro many times, eventually you'll just get a feel for when you need to mash A and when you don't. Another important thing in the intro is naming your dog, cow, farm and your character A, because this allows you to get through the intro as fast as possible. It's not that important if you mess it up, but it's still nice to get a quick intro. So the first thing you want to do as soon as you get into the game is sleep, because you can't actually go to the bar at the moment because it's closed. So what you'll want to do before you go to Muffy is you'll want to milk a cow, because milk is actually an additional gift you can give to Muffy. So after milking your cow and picking up the 2 bottles of milk, you'll want to head over to the fields below Celia's farm and pick up 3 flowers. After picking up the flowers, you can then head over to the blue bar where Muffy should be. There is a slight chance that Muffy may have already walked outside the blue bar and will be walking your way. While that may seem good because you can give her items quicker, that's not actually as good as having her be inside the bar, and I'll get to that in a bit. There are 2 interesting things about befriending Muffy. One of them is that you are able to get multiple points in one day besides a gift and a cutscene. The second thing is that getting friendship points is actually a bit more complicated. See here, I've given her a flower and it's come up with 3 options: yes, if you want it, and no. Now the default option is if you want it, which only increases your friendship points by 0.5, whereas selecting yes, the top answer, increases it by 1. And it just so happens that the requirement to get Muffy onto 1 red heart is 1 point. Giving Muffy some milk and selecting the default answer always increases your friendship by 0.5, so this is a relatively easy gift as you can just mash through the text. When Muffy is at the bar but not working, you are also actually able to get a point by talking to her. Talk to her enough times and eventually an option box will appear with 3 different options. However, only one of the options will actually increase your friendship points, so you have to choose the option that involves wanting to see her. If you choose the correct option, then you've increased your friendship points by 1. There isn't anything else you need to do in the first day, so all you have to do is go home and go to sleep until the next day. The second day is mostly the same as the first, except you don't have to pick flowers up at the beginning of the day. You also don't have to milk a cow at the beginning of the day, but you still have to do it that day, so it doesn't really matter when you do it. Sometimes when trying to get the point for talking to Muffy, the game will switch round the option boxes, and instead of being the default answer, the correct option will be the second one, so always make sure you choose the option about wanting to see her. There isn't anything left to do today except to go to sleep and milk a cow if you haven't already, so I'm going to skip ahead to the next day. So if you've done everything correct, then day 3 should start with a heart event. There is a chance that the heart event can activate on day 2 instead, and this can actually mess up the timing of a run, but if you're new to the run, don't worry about it. The good thing about this heart event is even though there are option boxes, you can just mash through them as the default answer is the correct one for both options. So by correctly going through the heart event, you manage to increase your friendship points by 1. After the heart event, Muffy will be just outside your farm, which means you can give her some milk and a flower. After that, you'll want to go and pick up 3 more flowers. If you're new to the run, then it's worth picking up a few more flowers just to be on the safe side. This is where the run starts to depend a little bit on luck. The reason why we don't go straight to the next day is because Muffy will be working in the afternoon and the bar will be closed in the morning. So instead what you do is pass the time by going mining. The reason why you go mining is because in the mines you can actually pick up 2 items which Muffy likes. These items are the moon ore and the gold coin. However, it is completely random as to whether or not you'll get a statue, a fossil, a moon ore, or a coin. It is also random as to whether or not Carter is actually in the mine, and you can only mine when Carter is there because you activate the mining by talking to him. In a minute I'll show you what the backup strategy is for when Carter isn't in the mine at all. So right now you'll be in the mine digging away hoping you get either a moon ore or a coin. Ideally you want as many of them as possible, but after 3 they become a bit pointless. you'll want to leave the mines at 3 o'clock at the latest. Any time after 3 means by the time you've walked back to your farm and then to the bar in the morning, you'll get there after 10, which means you'll have wasted a little bit of time. Before going to sleep, you'll want to milk your cow, and besides that, there isn't really anything else you need to do today, so now I'll show you what it's like when Carter isn't in the mine. So in the event that Carter isn't in the mine and you can't actually do any mining whatsoever, the first thing you want to do is go straight back to your farm. So let's just skip to what happens once you get back there. So once you get back to your farm, instead of milking the cow like you usually would at the end of the day, you're also going to feed it. This means that the next day, when you milk a cow, you'll get 3 bottles of milk instead of 2. This additional milk allows you to sell your cow early, which means you don't have to worry about it later in the run. So let's skip ahead to see what the next day looks like. The reason why you sell your cow in any wonderful life run is because if you don't, there's a chance that the cow will get sick and die, and the cow dying cutscene takes up quite a good bit of time. There's also a chance that the cow dying may lose you friendship points with some of the villagers and the girl you're trying to impress. So really, you just want to avoid your cow dying by selling it. An important thing to note is that even though this is a backup strat, this is still quite slow because you end up having to wait for the bar to open. But there's no need to start resetting runs due to bad luck until you start getting really good times. Assuming you didn't have to use the backup strat, you should get to the bar around the time it's opening, which is 10 o'clock. The rest of Spring 4 is the same as most of the other days. It's just giving Muffy gifts and hoping you get as many points as possible. If you are able to pick up any coins or ores in the mine, then you will be able to give her one each day. Giving her either a coin or an ore increases your friendship points with her by 1 whole point. It will be around about now when you start to get Muffy onto 2 red hearts. The point requirement for 2 hearts ranges from 7 points to 8 points, so if you're planning on using splits, I recommend just splitting on 8 points. If you weren't able to milk your cow earlier in the day, then you'll want to milk it on the way back, but besides that, there isn't anything else left to do today, so let's skip ahead to the next day. If you haven't sold your cow by day 5, then you'll want to milk it in the morning before you see Muffy, and then sell it straight after. The problem with selling it on day 5 is that there is a chance that your cow will get sick and you won't actually be able to sell it, but then there's still a chance that the cow won't actually die before the end of the run, so after this it's all up to luck. The reason why you want to milk a cow before you go see Muffy is because it allows enough time to pass so that you get to the bar at around 11 o'clock, and if you get to the bar at around 11 o'clock, you should be able to activate another heart event. Much like the heart event earlier in the run, the correct answers are the default ones, so you can just mash through this one as well. It will be about now when you get Muffy onto 3 red hearts. The requirement for 3 hearts is having 11 points and seeing the heart event just shown. Although even if you haven't actually seen the heart event, you can still continue to give her gifts and you will get her onto 4 hearts. The rest of this day is the same as all the others. Give her gifts, go back to the farm, and then sleep until the next day. So let's skip straight to then. So depending on how lucky you were in the mine earlier, you may not actually have to do this day. The reason behind this is because the requirement for 4 red hearts is having either 15 or 16 points and having the blue feather. However, in some cases, even if you're already on 15 or 16 points, it may be better to do this day in order to get the blue feather as early as possible. If at the end of Spring 5 it's not past 12 o'clock, then it's probably worth going over to Spring 6, because in order to get the blue feather as early as possible, you need the time to be past 12 o'clock. Any earlier than that and you will get the blue feather in the night of Summer 1, meaning you have to go over to Summer 2, which takes up more time. If by the end of Spring 5 it's past 12 o'clock, then you should be able to sleep until Summer 1, where you can then get the blue feather and propose to Muffy as long as you're on 16 or 15 points. I like to make sure I'm definitely on 16 so that I don't mess up a run at the last minute. Let's skip ahead to what happens when we get the blue feather and Summer 1. Summer 1 is your last chance to make sure you definitely have Muffy on 4 hearts. If you're new to this run, then you can actually check how many hearts you're on by checking her diary in the top left corner of the bar. If you don't feel you have her on 4 hearts yet, and you don't want to check, you can still give her gifts. This is your last chance. If Muffy doesn't accept your blue feather, then you'd actually have to come back the next day, and you'd lose friendship points with her, although you can't come back the next day because she will be working in the bar when you can't give her gifts. Once Muffy has accepted your blue feather, this is the end of the run. Timing stops once the cutscene ends and normal gameplay has returned. Thanks for watching my guide on how to marry Muffy in a Harvest Moon Wonderful Life speedrun. Hopefully I explained everything you needed and wanted to know. If you have any questions because you didn't understand anything in the guide or there is something else you want to know, feel free to either leave a comment below or PM me on Twitch.